Hey everyone, tonight we're stepping back in time, not to the clash of swords or the roar of emperors, but to the hushed, orderly rhythm of a Victorian household. Imagine, if you will, the gentle creak of floorboards, the distant clinking of porcelain, and the soft glow of gaslight through frosted panes. We're going to pull back the heavy damask curtains and peek into the intricate, surprisingly relaxing routines that govern daily life in a grand 19th century home. It's a world of hidden hierarchies and meticulous planning where the pursuit of comfort was elevated to an art form, though fair warning, you probably won't survive a day of their corsets or lack of central heating. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from in the comments below and what time it is for you right now. And if you're keen to keep unraveling these historical oddities, like and follow the channel to be ready for the next exciting parts. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You feel a chill in the air, a whisper of pre-dawn cold seeping through the gaps in the window frames. The gas lamps in the street outside have long since been extinguished, and the world is painted in shades of charcoal and faint emerging gray. But within the walls of this grand Victorian house, life is already stirring. Down below in the cavernous basements and sculleries, the servant stirrings have begun long before the first rays of sun dare to touch the master bedrooms upstairs. Imagine you are not the lady of the house, nor the esteemed gentleman. No, you are a shadow silently observing the earliest risers. The kitchen maid, perhaps, is the very first to break the stillness, her movements precise and practiced even in the dim light. You might hear the gentle hiss of a gas jet being lit beneath a large kettle, the air soon filling with the comforting aroma of heating water. This is the unsung overture to the day, a symphony of preparation that few in the household will ever truly appreciate, yet upon which their entire day's comfort depends. The mainstream historical fact here is that the vast majority of households, even middle-class ones, relied heavily on domestic staff to manage daily life, with servants often waking hours before their employers. This wasn't merely a luxury, it was the accepted societal norm. The quirk, however, is just how early and silently these routines began. You might picture the scullery maid, her breath misting slightly in the cool air, polishing brass until it gleams like captured sunshine, long before the sun itself has made its debut. It's a quiet ballet of efficiency performed in almost total darkness. Historians still argue whether the perceived laziness of the Victorian upper classes, given their reliance on staff, was a genuine character trait or simply a product of the societal structure that made such reliance not only possible, but expected. Regardless, the servants were the true engine of the household. You observed the housemaid, feather duster in hand, tiptoeing through the drawing room, her movements so delicate she barely disturbs the dust motes. Every piece of furniture, every ornament, every book on the shelf receives her silent, meticulous attention. The fires which died down overnight are being raked out and relayed, the first crackles of kindling beginning to murmur from the grates. You can almost feel the gentle warmth starting to radiate, pushing back against the morning chill. These early hours are a testament to the sheer scale of work involved in maintaining a Victorian home. It's not just about tidying, it's about cleanliness that borders on the obsessive warmth that defies the cold, and a constant unseen battle against dust grime in the relentless march of time. Imagine trying to keep up with this level of upkeep yourself. You'd probably give up after a week and declare dust bunnies to be rustic decor. Yet for these servants, it was their entire existence a quiet testament to their dedication, often for meager wages and even poor living conditions. The soft glow of a lantern carried by a footman on his way to check the front door, the whisper of skirts as a chambermaid prepares fresh linens. These are the subtle, almost dreamlike sounds that herald the dawn of another perfectly orchestrated Victorian day. As the subtle sounds of the waking servants fade into the background, a new set of routines begin to unfurl, still veiled in the quiet intimacy of the family's private chambers. You ascend the grand staircase, guided by the growing warmth from the relayed fires, and find yourself in the master bedroom. Here the focus shifts to the elaborate process of morning ablutions and dressing for the day ahead. Imagine the gentle rapping on the bedroom door, not a hurried knock, but a respectful signal. A lady's maid enters, perhaps carrying a copper jug, steaming with hot water, its warmth a welcome contrast to the chilly room. The mainstream historical fact is that while full immersion baths were a weekly or even less frequent affair, due to the sheer effort involved in heating and transporting water, daily personal hygiene in Victorian homes was still meticulous. It simply involved less water and more strategic washing. You might notice a large ceramic basin and pitcher on a washstand alongside an array of soaps, brushes, and specialized tools. The quirk here is the sheer ritual involved. You might think your morning routine is complex, but try doing it without running water on tap. The maid pours the heated water into the basin, ready for a sponge bath. You observe the delicate process of cleaning, often with heavily perfumed soaps, ensuring every exposed part of the skin is refreshed. Then comes the hair, brushed with a vigor that could probably tame a small pony, sometimes 100 strokes, to ensure a lustrous sheen. It's a painstaking process designed not just for cleanliness, but for presentation. Historians still argue whether the perceived aversion to frequent bathing was purely practical due to the difficulty of water heating, or if it also stemmed from prevailing medical theories of the time regarding the permeability of the skin to various miasmas. Regardless, the daily wash and brush up was non-negotiable. Now comes the true challenge: dressing. For the lady of the house, this is a multi-layered affair that could rival building a small fortress. First the chemise, then layers of petticoats, often starched and stiff rustling like dry leaves. But the true architectural marvel is the corset. Yarnkum. You can almost hear the gentle thwack of the stays as the maid laces it tighter, a process that requires strength and precision. It's not just about aesthetics. The corset dictated posture, shaping the body into the fashionable silhouette of the day. You might wince empathetically as you imagine the restriction, the gentle pressure on the diaphragm. Forget deep breaths. It's more about shallow, elegant sips of air. This is probably where you, a modern person, wouldn't survive the Victorian era. One full breath, and pop, goes the corset. Next come the stockings, carefully pulled taut, perhaps held up by garters. Then the dress itself, often heavy with fabric, intricate with lace, and adorned with ribbons or buttons. Every detail is crucial, every seam perfect. For the gentleman, while less physically restrictive, the process is no less formal. His valet would lay out crisp shirts with detachable collars and cuffs, perfectly pressed trousers, and a waistcoat. The tying of the cravat or necktie is an art form in itself, a precise knot that speaks volumes about his status and attention to detail. You can almost feel the stiff collar chafing gently against the neck, a subtle reminder of the era's formality. This morning ritual is more than just getting dressed. It's a transformation, a donning of the social armor required for the day. It reinforces roles, separates the private self from the public persona, and prepares one for the exacting standards of Victorian society. The sounds are soft, the rustle of fabric, the quiet click of buttons, the delicate scrape of a brush through hair, all culminating in the polished, poised figures, ready to descend for breakfast, ready to present themselves to the world. With the elaborate morning toilette complete, you now descend from the private chambers, following the faint, enticing aromas that drift up from the dining room. The house, once stirring with the quiet industry of servants, now begins to hum with the gentle activity of the family. It is time for the family breakfast rituals, a meal that, while less formal than dinner, still held its own set of expectations and subtle social cues. Imagine stepping into a bright, cheerful dining room, perhaps with sunlight streaming through large windows illuminating a polished mahogany table. The table is already laid, not with the full grandeur of an evening banquet, but with a pristine white tablecloth, gleaming silver cutlery, and delicate porcelain. The mainstream historical fact here is that breakfast in Victorian England, especially for the upper and middle classes, was a substantial affair far beyond a quick piece of toast. It was designed to fuel a day of varied activities and often included multiple hot dishes. You might see a large silver tea urn gently steaming, taking pride of place. The quirk, however, lies in the sheer variety of food often presented. You might expect eggs and bacon, but picture platters laden with cold meats like ham or tongue, perhaps a fish dish such as kippers or kedgeree, various breads and rolls, jams, marmalades, and even hot cereals like porridge. It's a veritable buffet designed to cater to diverse tastes and ensure everyone is well fed. Historians still argue whether the legendary Victorian appetite was a result of their more active lifestyles compared to modern times, or if it was partly a cultural display of abundance and prosperity. Regardless, you'd need a serious appetite to tackle this spread every morning. You observe the family gathering. The gentleman of the house, perhaps already having glanced at the morning papers, takes his place at the head of the table. The lady of the house, looking impeccably dressed, sits opposite him, ready to oversee the pouring of tea and coffee. The children, if old enough to join the main meal, sit quietly, their manners impeccable, perhaps occasionally casting longing glances at a particularly tempting pastry. No loud chatter here, no phones at the table, just polite conversation, often about the day's plans or the weather. You might hear the gentle clink of a spoon against a teacup or the soft rustle of a newspaper being turned. The servants, though not present at the table, are still very much a part of the ritual. A footman or maid might stand discreetly by the sideboard, ready to replenish dishes or attend to any requests. The food prepared with such care downstairs is brought up hot and fresh, ensuring the family's comfort. It's a seamless operation, a testament to the efficient division of labor within the household. You might even spot a small silver bell on the table, a silent signal for assistance, a subtle reminder of the power dynamics at play. This breakfast is more than just sustenance. It's a daily affirmation of the family's status and their ordered existence. It's a moment of quiet togetherness before the day's activities pull everyone in different directions. The sunlight streaming in the warmth of the tea, the comforting aromas, all combine to create a sense of domestic tranquility, a perfectly composed scene that belies the bustling activity of the servants below stairs. You, the silent observer, might even feel a pang of longing for a simpler time, where breakfast was a leisurely, multi-course affair, and the biggest decision was whether to have another slice of ham or a second helping of kedgeree. As the gentle clinking of breakfast cutlery fades, the household begins its methodical transition into the morning's various activities. Your attention now turns to the patriarch, the gentleman of the house, as he retreats into his domain, the gentleman's study and business. This isn't just a room, it's the nerve center of his public and private affairs, a place of quiet concentration and decisive action. Imagine stepping into a room steeped in the scent of aged leather pipe tobacco, even if unlit, and old books. Dark wood paneling rises to the ceiling, and a large imposing desk dominates the space, piled neatly with ledgers, correspondence, and perhaps a newspaper or two. The mainstream historical fact here is that for middle and upper class Victorian men, the study served as a private office where they managed personal finances, investments, correspondence, and often aspects of their professional lives, even if their main place of business was elsewhere. It was a space designed for quiet industry, far from the domestic bustle. The quirk, however, lies in the sheer volume and complexity of the paperwork. You might see stacks of bills, receipts, investment statements, and meticulously handwritten letters concerning business ventures or legal matters. It's a paper trail that could make a modern accountant weep. Historians still argue whether the Victorian gentleman's involvement in his personal finances was driven more by a genuine passion for business or by the sheer necessity of managing complex inherited wealth and investments in an era before easily accessible banks and financial advisors. Regardless, the work was real. You observe the gentleman settling into his large, comfortable leather armchair. Perhaps he dips a quill pen into an inkwell, the faint scratching sound the only disturbance in the quiet room. He might be reviewing his portfolio, calculating dividends, or dictating letters to a private secretary who sits discreetly in a corner. These aren't casual emails. Every letter is a formal document, carefully worded and impeccably penned. You can almost feel the weight of responsibility that rests on his shoulders, the constant need for vigilance over his financial empire, however large or small. Beyond finance, the study is also where social and political obligations might be addressed. He might be preparing notes for a speech, drafting a response to a civic committee, or simply catching up on the weighty editorials in the Times. It's a space where the outside world, in its more formal and serious aspects, is allowed to penetrate the domestic sphere. The only interruptions would be the most pressing matters delivered by a quiet knock and a discreet servant. You might even spot a locked strongbox or a small concealed safe hinting at the valuables and important documents stored within. This morning routine in the study is a testament to the methodical and disciplined nature of Victorian life. It's a period of intense focus ensuring the financial well-being and social standing of the household are meticulously maintained. The soft rustle of papers, the gentle scratch of a pen, the low murmur of dictation. These are the sounds of an empire, however small, being managed with precision. You, the silent observer, might even find a strange comfort in this quiet dedication, a sense of order in a complex world, a world where even your personal ledger required more attention than your entire bank balance today. While the gentleman of the house is immersed in the serious business of his study, the lady of the house engages in her own set of morning responsibilities, ones that are far more outwardly social, her ladies' morning calls. These weren't casual chats. They were a cornerstone of Victorian social life governed by strict rules of etiquette and vital for maintaining one's position within society. Imagine stepping into a lavish drawing room, perhaps one recently dusted and tidied by the early rising housemaid. The room is now bright and inviting, prepared for visitors. The air might be faintly perfumed with lavender or rose. You see the lady of the house, dressed impeccably perhaps, in a morning gown of rich silk or finely tailored wool, awaiting or preparing for her excursions. The mainstream historical fact here is that formal social calls were a crucial part of upper and middle-class Victorian life, serving as the primary means of communication, networking, and maintaining social hierarchies before the widespread use of telephones. The quirk, however, lies in the intricate dance of the calling card. You might picture a silver tray near the entrance holding a neat stack of small engraved cards. A morning call typically involved leaving a calling card at someone's home with a corner folded to indicate the nature of the visit, perhaps PRER for pour féliciter, to congratulate, or PC for pour condoléances, to offer condolences. Historians still argue whether the elaborate rules of calling card etiquette were a genuine reflection of Victorian formality or an overly complex system designed to create social barriers and reinforce class distinctions. Regardless, it was a subtle language understood by all. If the lady of the house is receiving, you might observe a discreet maid opening the door to a visitor who hands over her card. If the lady is at home, she would receive the visitor for a brief conversation, often lasting no more than 15–20 minutes. The topics of discussion would be light the weather, recent social events, perhaps a new book or a charitable endeavor. No deep philosophical debates here. It's about pleasantries and polite conversation, maintaining social connections without delving into anything too personal. You might hear the gentle rustle of silks as ladies curtsy or the soft murmur of polite chatter. If she is making calls, you would see her in her carriage, perhaps driven by a liveried coachman, making her way through the tree-lined streets. Each stop is a brief affair: alight, deliver the card, perhaps a quick exchange with a maid, then back into the carriage to the next destination. It's a carefully choreographed ballet of social obligation, demanding both stamina and a keen memory for names and faces. You might even spot a small notebook in her gloved hand, discreetly jotting down details of her calls, ensuring no social faux pas is committed later. These morning calls are more than just friendly visits. They are a vital mechanism for maintaining social standing, sharing information, and subtly reinforcing class boundaries. They are a display of leisure and status, a testament to a life where personal time was dedicated to upholding social norms. The clip-clop of horse hooves on the cobblestones, the soft closing of carriage doors, the polite coughs and murmurs. These are the sounds of Victorian society meticulously tending to its intricate social garden, ensuring every bloom is in its proper place. While the lady of the house navigates the intricate world of social calls, and the gentleman is immersed in his ledgers, another, perhaps more boisterous set of routines unfolds within the house: the children's education and play. For Victorian children, especially in upper and middle-class homes, days were a careful balance of structured learning and supervised recreation, far removed from the freewheeling play of modern childhood. Imagine stepping into a sun-drenched nursery or a dedicated schoolroom, perhaps high up in the house away from the formal reception rooms. The air might smell faintly of chalk dust, beeswax polish, and perhaps a hint of a freshly peeled apple. You see children dressed in their neat, often sailor-collared outfits or pinafores, sitting at small wooden desks, their backs straight, their attention mostly on their lessons. The mainstream historical fact here is that formal education for Victorian children from affluent families typically took place at home, often under the tutelage of a governess or tutor covering a wide range of subjects from languages and arithmetic to music and drawing. The quirk, however, lies in the sheer intensity and breadth of the curriculum, even for very young children. You might observe a stern-looking governess, her spectacles perched on her nose, guiding a child through Latin conjugations, while another practices scales on a piano in the corner. Then perhaps they move to geography, tracing routes on a large globe, followed by an hour of drawing delicate watercolors. Historians still argue whether the rigorous nature of Victorian childhood education fostered true intellectual development or merely rote memorization in conformity to societal expectations. Regardless, these children were kept busy. After a morning of lessons, playtime was often just as structured as their studies. You might see them not tearing through the house unsupervised, but engaging in quiet, constructive play. Perhaps building intricate structures with wooden blocks, assembling complex puzzles, or meticulously dressing dolls in miniature Victorian attire. Outdoor play, if the weather permitted, might involve a supervised stroll in the garden, a gentle game of croquet, or perhaps riding tricycles on a paved path, always under the watchful eye of a governess or nursemaid. You can almost hear the gentle clack of wooden toys, the soft murmur of polite conversation, and perhaps the distant muffled laughter from a game of hide and seek. Even their toys reflected the era's values. Think of intricate doll houses filled with tiny furniture, perfectly scaled tea sets, or elaborate toy soldiers. These weren't disposable plastic novelties. They were often beautifully crafted, meant to last generations, and often subtly designed to reinforce gender roles and social expectations. The girls would learn domesticity through play, the boys leadership and strategy. You might spot a beautifully illustrated storybook, perhaps one teaching moral lessons lying open on a velvet cushion. This careful orchestration of education and play was designed to mold the children into proper Victorian ladies and gentlemen, instilling discipline, knowledge, and appropriate social graces from a young age. The soft scratch of a pencil, the melodic strains of a piano lesson, the hushed whispers during a game. These are the sounds of childhood being meticulously shaped, preparing the next generation to inherit their place in an ordered world. You, the silent observer, might feel a pang of sympathy for their lack of spontaneous chaos, or perhaps a strange admiration for their disciplined upbringing, a far cry from the modern-day deluge of screens and endless unstructured activities. As the children's lessons transition to quieter play, and the lady of the house attends to her social duties, the true unsung heroes of the Victorian household are in constant motion. Your focus now shifts to the relentless, often invisible efforts of the staff in housekeeping and daily chores. This isn't just a tidying up. It's a continuous, methodical battle against dirt, grime, and entropy, ensuring every corner of the house remains pristine. Imagine the sheer scale of the work. You might hear the rhythmic swish of a broom on polished wood, the faint clink of a bucket being moved, or the soft thud of a dust sheet being unfurled. The mainstream historical fact here is that Victorian standards of cleanliness were exceptionally high, bordering on obsessive, particularly for visible areas of the house. Every surface was expected to gleam, every fabric to be spotless, a direct reflection of the family's status and propriety. The quirk, however, lies in the sheer lack of modern conveniences. Think about cleaning a multi-story house without vacuum cleaners, washing machines, or readily available cleaning products beyond soap water and elbow grease. You might observe a housemaid on her knees meticulously scrubbing a section of floorboards until they are bone white, or polishing silver until it reflects her tired face like a mirror. Historians still argue whether the extreme emphasis on cleanliness was primarily a response to germ theory, which was emerging but not fully understood, or a social construct, a visible symbol of moral purity and domestic order. Regardless, the work was arduous. Dusting alone could take hours. Imagine going through every single ornament, every book, every picture frame, carefully wiping away the invisible particles that constantly settled. You'd probably find yourself thinking, a little dust never hurt anyone. But in this era, it was a mortal enemy. Then there's the brass and silver requiring constant polishing until they shone with a brilliance that caught every flicker of gaslight. You can almost feel the ache in your back just imagining the repetitive motions, the meticulous attention to detail. Beyond the visible tidying, there were the unseen tasks. emptying and cleaning chamber pots from the bedrooms, a less glamorous but absolutely essential daily duty, carrying coal up to all the various fireplaces to keep the house warm, hauling heavy buckets of water for washing and cleaning. It's a constant circuit of lifting, scrubbing, and polishing, performed with a quiet efficiency that often made the work invisible to the family upstairs. You might see a maid's apron, once crisp, now smudged with soot or dust, a silent testament to her unseen labors. This relentless cycle of chores was the backbone of the Victorian household, ensuring the smooth, comfortable functioning of daily life for the family. The soft creak of floorboards underfoot, the gentle clatter of cleaning tools, the muffled sounds of scrubbing. These are the sounds of an entire ecosystem of labor constantly at work to maintain an illusion of effortless perfection. You, the silent observer, might feel a newfound appreciation for your own convenient cleaning supplies, and perhaps a shiver of dread at the thought of living in an era where cleanliness was literally an all-day, everyday chore. As the quiet hum of housekeeping fades into the background, a new symphony of scents and sounds begins to emanate from the lower regions of the house. Your senses are now drawn to the heart of the domestic operations, the kitchen preparations and cooking. This isn't just a place to warm up leftovers. It's a bustling, often sweltering engine of culinary creation, operating on a scale that would astound a modern cook. Imagine stepping into a vast kitchen, perhaps somewhat smoky from the large range, yet filled with an undeniable energy. The air is rich with the aroma of roasting meats, simmering broths, freshly baked bread, and perhaps the sharp tang of vinegar from pickles. You see copper pots and pans gleaming on racks, an array of specialized tools hanging neatly, and large wooden tables laden with ingredients. The mainstream historical fact here is that Victorian cooking was incredibly labor-intensive, relying on rudimentary equipment and raw ingredients, with no convenience foods or refrigeration, demanding immense skill and coordination from the kitchen staff. The quirk, however, lies in the sheer volume and complexity of the dishes being prepared even for a single family meal. You might observe a stout cook, perhaps, with sleeves rolled up, kneading dough for bread, while a scullery maid is tirelessly peeling what seems like mountains of vegetables. Another might be plucking a fowl or meticulously preparing fish. Historians still argue whether the elaborate multi-course Victorian meals were primarily a display of wealth and social status, or a genuine reflection of culinary artistry in a society that placed high value on gastronomic pleasure. Regardless, it took an army to prepare. Think of the processes involved: water boiling in massive kettles on the range, the constant stoking of the fire to maintain the perfect temperature for roasting, the grinding of spices by hand, the churning of butter. You can almost feel the heat radiating from the brick oven, smell the sweet scent of baking pies, and hear the rhythmic chop, chop, chop of knives on wooden cutting boards. It's a dance of efficiency, each member of the kitchen staff knowing their role and executing it with practiced ease. You might even spot a large, heavy pestle and mortar used for grinding spices, a task that now takes a mere second with modern appliances. And it wasn't just dinner. There were often preparations for luncheons, teas, and various snacks throughout the day. Every meal was a production, every dish made from scratch. The central hub of activity, largely unseen by the family upstairs, was a microcosm of Victorian labor fueled by dedication and an unwavering commitment to feeding the household. The clatter of crockery, the sizzle of fat in a pan, the quiet instructions from the cook. These are the sounds of sustenance being meticulously crafted. You, the silent observer, might feel a deep appreciation for your microwave and takeout options, and a shiver of dread at the thought of cooking a proper Victorian meal from scratch every single day. One burnt pie and you'd probably be fired right. As the rich aromas from the bustling kitchen begin to mingle, signaling the approach of midday, the family often seeks respite and gentle activity beyond the confines of the house itself. Your journey now takes you outdoors into the carefully cultivated greenery to observe the serene moments of garden strolls and leisure. These weren't just walks. They were integral parts of the Victorian day, offering fresh air, exercise, and a chance for quiet reflection or polite conversation. Imagine stepping into a meticulously maintained Victorian garden. The air is fresh, perhaps carrying the scent of damp earth and blooming roses. You see winding gravel paths, neatly trimmed hedges, vibrant flower beds, bursting with color, and perhaps a bubbling fountain or a quaint gazebo nestled amongst the foliage. The mainstream historical fact here is that gardening was a hugely popular pastime in Victorian England, with elaborate gardens designed not just for beauty, but also as spaces for leisure, social interaction, and quiet contemplation. They were considered extensions of the home. The quirk, however, lies in the specific social rituals surrounding these strolls. You might observe the lady of the house, perhaps with her older daughters, walking at a measured pace, their parasols twirling elegantly against the sun. Conversation would be light, perhaps discussing the merits of a new rose bush, the latest social gossip, or planning future garden parties. Historians still argue whether the apparent leisure of these garden activities genuinely reflected a carefree existence for the upper classes, or if even these seemingly relaxed moments were subtly governed by unspoken rules of decorum and status. Regardless, they offered a vital break from indoor formality. You can almost hear the gentle crunch of gravel underfoot, the soft rustle of skirts, and the distant polite laughter. The garden was a sanctuary, a place where one could escape the confines of corsets and formal studies, albeit still under a watchful eye. It was also a place for gentle exercise considered vital for health, especially for ladies who were not expected to engage in more strenuous physical activity. Think of the intricate floral arrangements and the careful selection of plants. Every part of the garden was designed to evoke beauty and a sense of cultivated nature. You might even spot a small iron garden bench, inviting a moment of repose amidst the blooms. Children, too, might be granted supervised time in the garden, perhaps playing quiet games or simply exploring the wonders of nature. It's a calmer, more controlled version of outdoor recreation than you might be used to. There's a distinct absence of shouting or boisterous games. Instead, you might observe them carefully examining a beetle or picking a perfectly formed flower to present to their mother. It's a subtle dance between freedom and restraint, even in the open air. These garden strolls are more than just walks. They are moments of gentle decompression, allowing the mind to wander and the body to stretch in the fresh air. They represent a carefully curated sense of leisure, a visual symbol of the family's refined tastes and their connection to the ordered beauty of nature. The buzzing of bees, the chirping of birds, the delicate scent of blossoms. These are the subtle, soothing sounds of a Victorian household, finding its quiet moments of outdoor grace, a breath of fresh air before the afternoon's activities resume their steady march. As the gentle breezes of the garden give way to the rumblings of midday appetites, the household transitions to a less formal, yet still structured culinary interlude, the midday meal and light refreshments. This meal, often referred to as luncheon, provided a bridge between the morning's activities and the more formal engagements of the afternoon. Imagine stepping into a less formal dining area than the grand breakfast room, perhaps a sunny breakfast parlor, or even a dedicated luncheon room. The table is set with a lighter touch, perhaps a patterned tablecloth, instead of crisp white damask and fewer silver implements. The air might carry the fresh scent of prepared salads or a light consommé, a pleasant contrast to the heavier aromas of morning cooking. The mainstream historical fact here is that luncheon as a distinct midday meal became increasingly common during the Victorian era, particularly for ladies and children as dinner shifted later in the evening. It was typically a lighter, less ceremonial affair than the main evening meal. The quirk, however, lies in the specific types of light refreshments often served. You might expect cold cuts, perhaps a simple soup and an array of breads and cheeses. But picture also delicate sandwiches with the crusts meticulously removed, small savory pastries, or perhaps a molded aspic shimmering on a platter. Historians still argue whether the concept of light luncheon fare was genuinely about digestibility or more about allowing ladies to maintain their delicate figures and avoid appearing gluttonous before the evening's grand dinner. Regardless, the presentation was always impeccable. You observe the family members who are present, often the lady of the house, the children, if their lessons are finished, and perhaps any close family friends or visiting relatives. The gentleman might join them if his business allows, but it's not strictly expected. The conversation is more relaxed than at breakfast, perhaps discussing the morning's calls or the children's progress. You might hear the gentle tinkle of a spoon against a glass of lemonade, or the soft murmur of polite queries about the afternoon's plans. Servants would still be present, though perhaps fewer in number than for dinner, ensuring dishes are replenished and needs are met with quiet efficiency. This midday meal provides a necessary pause in the day's routine, a chance to refuel without the full commitment of a formal dinner. It's a moment of respite often enjoyed with less pomp and circumstance, allowing for a more informal atmosphere. You can almost feel the gentle warmth of the soup or the refreshing coolness of a chilled drink, a brief comfort before the afternoon's duties call. The sunlight streaming through the windows, the fresh colors of the food, the subdued chatter, all contribute to a sense of gentle domesticity, a tranquil interlude in the otherwise structured day. This luncheon, while light, was still a testament to the household's ability to provide constant comfort and sustenance. It underscored the continuous cycle of culinary preparation and service that underpinned Victorian domestic life. You, the silent observer, might find yourself craving a simple, elegant sandwich or a cool glass of lemonade, appreciating the structured grace of these midday refreshments, a far cry from a modern quick lunch grabbed on the go. As the last crumbs of luncheon are cleared and the delicate teacups put away, the afternoon unfolds with a quieter, more contemplative set of activities. Your attention now shifts to the gentle art of afternoon correspondence and reading, pursuits that offered both a vital means of communication and a cherished form of intellectual and personal escape in the Victorian era. Imagine stepping into a softly lit drawing room or a quiet parlor perhaps with a fire gently crackling in the grate on a cooler day. The air is still permeated by the scent of old paper and perhaps a faint whisper of rose potpourri. You see the lady of the house perhaps seated at a small writing desk or comfortably settled in an armchair by a window, a stack of crisp stationery and an inkwell at hand. The mainstream historical fact here is that letter writing was an indispensable part of Victorian life for all social classes, serving as the primary method for maintaining family ties, social connections, and business dealings, given the absence of modern telecommunications. The quirk, however, lies in the sheer volume and formality of the correspondence. You might observe the lady meticulously composing a letter, her pen scratching softly across the page, her thoughts carefully crafted into elegant prose. These weren't quick texts or emails. They were often lengthy, detailed missives discussing everything from family news and social engagements to philosophical ponderings. Historians still argue whether the elaborate epistolary style of the Victorians was a genuine expression of their complex thoughts or a performative act, reflecting the era's emphasis on formal expression and cultivated manners. Regardless, it demanded patience and skill. You can almost hear the soft rustle of paper, the gentle click of a pen, nib on parchment as a sentence is carefully formed. Beyond writing, the afternoon was also a cherished time for reading. Picture her perhaps with a leather-bound novel or a volume of poetry open in her lap, utterly absorbed in its pages. Reading was not merely entertainment. It was considered a vital moral and intellectual pursuit, a window to broader worlds and deeper thoughts. The content could range from improving literature and moral tales to the latest serialized novels eagerly awaited with each new installment. You might even spot a pair of delicate spectacles perched on her nose, or a bookmark peeking from between the pages. The quiet solitude of these activities often contrasted sharply with the more public aspects of Victorian life. It was a time for personal reflection, for engaging with ideas, and for maintaining distant relationships through the written word. Servants would be virtually invisible during these hours, ensuring the utmost peace and privacy. The only sounds would be the turning of pages, the scratch of the pen, and perhaps the gentle ticking of a mantel clock, marking the passage of time in this tranquil bubble. This afternoon routine centered around correspondence and reading reflects the Victorian reverence for intellect communication in the cultivated mind. It highlights a society that valued the deliberate exchange of ideas and the immersive pleasure of literature. The soft murmur of internal thoughts, the silent absorption in a story, the careful crafting of a letter. These are the subtle sounds of Victorian minds at work and at ease. You, the silent observer, might feel a wistful longing for such uninterrupted moments of focus, a true luxury in our modern, always connected world, where even a quiet read is punctuated by a buzzing phone. As the afternoon light deepens and the scent of ink and old paper from correspondence fades, another facet of Victorian leisure emerges: the pursuit of artistic pursuits and hobbies. These activities were not just ways to pass the time. They were integral to a cultivated education expressions of refinement and often quiet moments of personal satisfaction. Imagine stepping into a sun-dappled parlor, perhaps with a window, looking out onto the meticulously kept garden. The air might carry the faint scent of oil paint beeswax or the delicate aroma of wood from a polished instrument. You see a lady, or perhaps one of the older children, engaged in a focused creative endeavor. The mainstream historical fact here is that artistic and domestic accomplishments were highly valued for Victorian ladies, seen as essential elements of a proper upbringing and demonstrations of refinement and leisure. The quirk, however, lies in the sheer dedication and skill often achieved in these seemingly gentle hobbies. You might observe a young lady seated at an easel, carefully applying brushstrokes to a watercolor landscape, her brow furrowed in concentration. Or perhaps another is meticulously embroidering a complex floral pattern onto a piece of silk, her needle flashing with rhythmic precision. Historians still argue whether the emphasis on these accomplishments truly fostered genuine artistic talent, or if it was primarily a means of showcasing a lady's suitability for marriage and her family's social standing. Regardless, the hours poured into them were immense. You can almost hear the soft scratching of a paintbrush on canvas, the gentle snip, snip of embroidery scissors, or the delicate plucking of harp strings, producing a melodic, if sometimes hesitant tune. Music was another cornerstone. Picture a young lady seated at the piano, her fingers gracefully gliding across the keys playing a parlor piece. These were not public concerts. These were intimate performances for the household moments of shared beauty and quiet entertainment. You might even spot a gentleman sketching in a leather-bound notebook or engaging in the meticulous craft of stamp, collecting, a very popular hobby of the era. These pursuits were often solitary, offering a quiet escape into the world of creativity and meticulous detail. They demanded patience, precision, and an appreciation for beauty. The light filtering through the lace curtains, the focused silence broken only by the sounds of creation, all contribute to a sense of peaceful dedication. Servants would quietly go about their duties elsewhere, ensuring no disturbance to these cherished moments of personal expression. These artistic pursuits and hobbies were more than just diversions. They were avenues for self-expression, for cultivating refinement, and for reinforcing the structured, yet aesthetically rich nature of Victorian life. They symbolized a cultivated mind and a well-ordered existence, a testament to a society that believed in the improvement of self through deliberate genteel activity. The soft murmurs of a practiced tune, the silent concentration on a delicate stitch, the careful sweep of a brush. These are the gentle sounds of Victorian minds and hands engaged in the quiet pursuit of beauty, a tranquil interlude before the day's next set of formal expectations. Leaving the quiet cultivation of artistic pursuits, you now follow the lady of the house on a different kind of afternoon excursion, one that highlights a crucial yet often complex aspect of Victorian morality and social expectation: visiting the poor in charity. This wasn't merely an act of kindness. It was a deeply ingrained social obligation, a demonstration of moral duty, and a means of reinforcing societal structures. Imagine stepping from the comfortable warmth of the drawing room into the crisp outdoor air, perhaps preparing for a carriage ride through streets that become progressively less grand. The scent of polished leather from the carriage gives way to the smells of coal smoke, damp earth, and crowded tenements. You see the lady of the house, perhaps accompanied by a companion or an older daughter dressed appropriately, yet simply carrying a small basket or purse. The mainstream historical fact here is that philanthropy and charitable work, particularly visiting the poor, were considered vital roles for middle and upper-class Victorian women, embodying their moral responsibility and providing a socially acceptable outlet for their energies outside the home. The quirk, however, lies in the often patronizing nature of these visits. You might observe the lady of the house entering a humble dwelling, perhaps dimly lit and sparsely furnished, offering advice on cleanliness, thrift, or moral rectitude alongside material aid like food parcels or old clothing. Historians still argue whether these charitable efforts truly alleviated poverty or primarily served to reinforce class distinctions and impose middle-class values on the working poor. Regardless, the intent was often genuine, albeit framed by the societal norms of the time. You can almost hear the soft rustle of her skirts as she navigates cramped spaces, the polite but firm tone of her voice as she offers guidance in the hushed, often wary responses from the residents. These visits were a stark contrast to her otherwise comfortable existence, exposing her to the harsh realities of Victorian poverty. Yet they were also seen as an opportunity for self-improvement, for cultivating empathy, and for demonstrating piety. You might even spot a small leather-bound notebook in her hand, discreetly recording details of families visited and assistance provided, ensuring a methodical approach to her charitable endeavors. These interactions, however unequal, formed a vital part of the social fabric. They were a direct engagement with the less fortunate, a tangible link between the opulent world of the aristocracy and the struggling realities of the urban poor. Think of the psychological impact of seeing such stark contrasts, a momentary glimpse into a life completely different from one's own. It's a reminder of the vast social divide that characterized Victorian society, yet also the efforts, however flawed, to bridge it through individual actions. This routine of visiting the poor and engaging in charity was more than just a pastime. It was a fundamental expression of Victorian morality, social duty, and the complex interplay of class. It symbolized a belief in social responsibility and the importance of benevolent action, even if imperfectly applied. The clip-clop of horse hooves through poorer neighborhoods, the soft murmur of earnest advice, the quiet acceptance of aid. These are the sounds of a Victorian conscience at work, attempting to soften the edges of a society built on stark inequalities. You, the silent observer, might feel a mix of admiration for their intentions and discomfort with their methods, a nuanced understanding of a bygone era's approach to compassion. While the lady of the house dedicates her afternoon to external social duties and charity, the internal workings of the children's education continue under the watchful eye of a figure often occupying a complex and challenging position, the marge gouverness. Her duties were extensive, her social standing precarious, and her challenges constant in shaping the young minds of the household. Imagine stepping into the children's schoolroom, perhaps slightly more worn than the formal parlors downstairs, filled with books, maps, and the faint scent of ink and slate pencils. You see the governess, usually a well-educated woman from a respectable but impoverished background, presiding over her charges. She is dressed neatly but plainly, her demeanor one of quiet authority and tireless patience. The mainstream historical fact here is that governesses were a ubiquitous presence in affluent Victorian homes, responsible for the intellectual and moral education of the children, particularly the daughters until they reached an age for finishing school or presentation to society. The quirk, however, lies in her anomalous social position. She was neither family nor entirely servant. You might observe her sitting at a small desk, diligently correcting penmanship or explaining a complex mathematical problem while simultaneously navigating the subtle social cues of the household. She ate separately from the family, often with the children or alone, but was above the other domestic staff. Historians still argue whether the isolation and ambiguous social status of governesses fostered strong bonds with their charges or led to deep loneliness and resentment, making their role one of the most poignant in the Victorian household. Regardless, her life was one of constant duty. You can almost hear the soft rustle of a turning page, the gentle tap of a pointer on a globe, or the quiet, patient tones of her voice as she explains a difficult concept. Her curriculum was vast, encompassing everything from French and German to history, geography, drawing, music, and the all-important accomplishments for young ladies. She was expected to instill not just knowledge, but also proper etiquette, moral values, and religious instruction. You might even spot a stern-looking primer on deportment lying on a desk, a subtle reminder of the constant emphasis on proper behavior. Her challenges were many. Beyond the academic duties, she managed the children's daily routines, supervised their play, and acted as a moral compass. She had to navigate the often demanding expectations of the parents, the varying temperaments of the children, and the unspoken rivalries or resentments from other household staff. A good governess was a treasure, a bad one a source of constant friction. Think of the sheer mental stamina required to maintain composure and authority over lively young minds, day in and day out, with little personal reprieve. This detailed oversight by the governess was fundamental to the shaping of Victorian children, preparing them for their roles in society. It highlights the era's profound belief in structured education and the meticulous cultivation of character. The scratch of chalk on a board, the whispered explanations of grammar, the occasional stern but gentle correction, these are the sounds of minds being molded, futures being shaped all under the vigilant, often isolated care of the governess. You, the silent observer, might feel a profound respect for her dedication and perhaps a shiver of dread at the thought of living a life so defined by duty and social ambiguity, a true test of Victorian endurance. As the sun begins its slow descent, signaling the transition from afternoon duties to the evening social engagements, a new rhythm takes hold in the household, orchestrated by a crucial, often formidable figure, the Mina Butler's evening preparations. This isn't just about setting the table. It's a meticulous, almost ceremonial process of transforming the home into a stage for formal entertaining. Imagine stepping into the grand dining room which only hours ago hosted a simple breakfast. Now, under the softening light of late afternoon, it is being meticulously prepared for dinner. The air might be tinged with the faint scent of polished wood and silver. You see the butler, perhaps a man of imposing presence and impeccable bearing, moving with quiet authority, overseeing every detail. The mainstream historical fact here is that the butler was typically the highest-ranking male servant in a grand Victorian household, responsible for the wine cellar, the plate silverware, the dining room, and often supervising other male staff, playing a key role in formal entertaining. The quirk, however, lies in the sheer precision and ritual of his duties. You might observe him personally inspecting every piece of silver, ensuring it gleams with a blinding shine, or meticulously arranging the glassware, each goblet placed with geometric exactness. Historians still argue whether the butler's rigid adherence to etiquette and his often stiff demeanor were genuine aspects of his character or a professional performance designed to embody the dignity and order of the household he served. Regardless, his attention to detail was unwavering. You can almost hear the soft clink of silver as it's laid out, the almost imperceptible thud of a heavy tablecloth being unfurled, and the low murmured instructions he gives to a junior footman. The wine cellar would be visited, bottles carefully selected and brought up to the correct temperature. Napkins would be folded into intricate architectural shapes. The lighting, perhaps from gasoliers or a multitude of candles, would be adjusted to create the perfect ambiance. Every chair would be perfectly aligned, every flower arrangement meticulously centered. You might even spot him discreetly checking his pocket watch, ensuring everything is timed to perfection. Beyond the dining room, the butler's preparations extend to the reception areas. He would ensure the drawing room fires are perfectly banked, the sherry decanters full, and any final touches are made to present an immaculate facade for arriving guests. His presence is one of calm control, a silent orchestrator of the evening's anticipated elegance. Think of the immense responsibility resting on his shoulders. The smooth execution of the entire evening's social interaction depended heavily on his foresight and meticulous planning. These evening preparations, meticulously overseen by the butler, are a testament to the Victorian era's profound emphasis on formality presentation and the seamless execution of social rituals. They symbolize the household's commitment to outward perfection and the strict hierarchy of domestic labor. The subtle hum of impending grandeur, the soft sounds of meticulous arrangement, the quiet commands. These are the sounds of a Victorian evening being carefully, almost magically brought to life. You, the silent observer, might feel a deep respect for such dedication to detail, and perhaps a shiver of anxiety at the thought of a single misplaced fork disrupting such an exquisitely choreographed production. As the butler's meticulous evening preparations reach their peak, a parallel transformation begins to unfold within the private chambers upstairs, the intricate ritual of the dressing for dinner. This wasn't merely a change of clothes. It was a societal metamorphosis, a donning of formal attire that marked the day's transition from private domesticity to public social engagement. Imagine stepping into a grand dressing room, perhaps bathed in the soft glow of gaslight or the flicker of candlelight. The air is warm, perhaps carrying the faint scent of fresh linen perfume and polished leather. You see the lady of the house no longer in her daytime gown, but surrounded by layers of exquisite fabric guided by her lady's maid. The mainstream historical fact here is that formal evening wear was obligatory for dinner in upper and middle-class Victorian homes signifying the importance of the meal as a social event and adhering to strict dress codes of the era. The quirk, however, lies in the sheer architectural complexity of the ladies' gowns. You might observe the maid carefully easing her mistress into a new corset, perhaps even more tightly laced than the morning one, shaping her into the evening silhouette, which might feature a bustle or a full crinoline. Then come the multiple petticoats, often rustling with silk and lace, followed by the main gown itself, a masterpiece of tailoring, often made from heavy silks, velvets, or satins adorned with intricate embroidery beads or lace. Historians still argue whether the restrictive nature of Victorian formal wear was purely a matter of fashion and aesthetics, or if it also served as a subtle form of social control, limiting women's physical freedom and reinforcing their domestic roles. Regardless, it certainly wasn't designed for comfort. You can almost hear the soft whisper of rich fabrics, the gentle clink of tiny buttons being fastened, and the delicate rustle of a bustle as the lady moves. Her hair would be meticulously styled, perhaps coiled into an elaborate chignon, adorned with ribbons, pearls, or even fresh flowers. Jewelry would be chosen with care, sparkling necklaces, delicate bracelets, and glittering earrings, catching the light and adding to the overall splendor. The final touch might be a pair of long, elegant gloves, carefully smoothed into place. For the gentleman, the transformation, while less physically restrictive, was equally formal. His valet would lay out a crisp white shirt with a stiff starched front, a perfectly tied white bow tie or cravat, and a formal black tailcoat with matching trousers. Every crease, every fold, every button had to be just right. His shoes would be polished to a mirror sheen. You might hear the soft snip of scissors as a stray thread is removed, or the gentle sigh as a perfectly tied bow tie is adjusted. This ritual of dressing for dinner is a profound symbol of Victorian formality and social display. It's a moment of deliberate transformation, preparing the individual for their role in the evening's social theater. The soft murmurs of instruction, the subtle sounds of fastening and adjusting, the quiet rustle of luxurious materials. These are the sounds of an entire household preparing for its evening performance, where appearances were everything. You, the silent observer, might feel a strange fascination with this dedication to detail, and perhaps a profound gratitude for your own comparatively simple evening attire, which probably doesn't involve being laced into an elaborate garment after a long day. With the elaborate transformation of dressing for dinner, complete, the family and any esteemed guests now converge in the drawing room, commencing the ritual of monsieur pre-dinner drinks and conversation. This wasn't merely a waiting period. It was a carefully choreographed social prelude, a chance for polite mingling, light chatter, and the subtle assertion of social standing before the main event of the evening. Imagine stepping into a grand drawing room now fully illuminated by the soft glow of gaslight from intricate chandeliers, casting a warm, inviting ambiance. The air is alive with the gentle murmur of voices, the occasional soft laughter, and perhaps the delicate clink of crystal glasses. You see ladies in their voluminous evening gowns, their jewels catching the light, and gentlemen in their formal tailcoats moving with a practiced elegance. The mainstream historical fact here is that cocktails as we know them were not yet prevalent. Instead, pre-dinner refreshments typically consisted of sherry Madeira or port alongside light, polite conversation. The quirk, however, lies in the unspoken rules governing these interactions. You might observe guests forming small, polite conversational circles, discussing topics considered appropriate for mixed company, the latest opera, a recent travel experience, perhaps a piece of local gossip delivered with decorum. Historians still argue whether the perceived stiffness of Victorian social conversation was a genuine lack of spontaneity or a sophisticated form of social control where every word was carefully chosen to avoid impropriety or reveal too much. Regardless, it was a precise art. You can almost hear the soft, modulated tones of voices, the gentle rustle of a fan, or the quiet clink of a decanter against a glass as a gentleman pours a drink. The butler and footman would move discreetly through the room, offering refreshments on silver trays, their movements almost invisible amidst the mingling guests. No loud exclamations, no boisterous laughter. Instead, a refined hum of polite engagement, a delicate dance of social pleasantries. You might even spot a lady meticulously fanning herself, not necessarily from heat, but as a subtle social signal, a quiet acknowledgement or dismissal. This period before dinner was crucial for guests to exchange pleasantries, for the host and hostess to ensure everyone felt welcomed, and for new acquaintances to be made under controlled circumstances. It served as a vital transition from the individual pursuits of the day to the collective formality of the dinner party. Think of the subtle power dynamics at play: who speaks to whom for how long and what topics are raised. It's a world where every gesture, every word holds potential meaning. These pre-dinner drinks and conversations are more than just a casual warm-up. They are an essential part of the evening's social performance, setting the tone for the formal meal to follow. They symbolize the Victorian commitment to intricate social rituals and the importance of polished presentation. The soft murmur of voices, the gentle clink of crystal, the ambient glow of gaslight. These are the sounds and sights of a Victorian evening, gathering its elegant momentum. You, the silent observer, might feel a strange fascination with this carefully constructed world, and perhaps a shiver of relief that your own pre-dinner gatherings are probably far less fraught with unspoken rules. As the gentle hum of pre-dinner conversation reaches its crescendo, a discreet signal from the butler announces the evening's main event, the very formal dinner party and etiquette. This wasn't just a meal, it was a grand performance, a multi-act play governed by strict rules of protocol showcasing the household's wealth, the cook's skill, and the host's impeccable social standing. Imagine being ushered into the grand dining room, now ablaze with the light of dozens of candles and gasoliers, reflecting off polished silver and gleaming crystal. The long table is a vision of opulence, laden with platters, tureens, and intricate floral arrangements. The mainstream historical fact here is that Victorian dinner parties were elaborate multi-course affairs, often stretching over several hours with strict rules of seating service and conversation reflecting the era's emphasis on formality and social display. The quirk, however, lies in the sheer number of courses and the meticulous sequencing. You might observe soup being served first, followed by fish, then perhaps a joint of roast meat, then a game course, then a sweet course, and finally cheese and dessert, all accompanied by specific wines. Historians still argue whether the legendary number of courses served at Victorian dinners was a genuine reflection of contemporary dining preferences or a competitive display of wealth and culinary excess designed to impress guests. Regardless, you'd need an Olympic-level appetite and bladder capacity to endure it. You take your seat, perhaps guided by a discreet place card, ensuring the careful arrangement of guests for optimal conversation and social hierarchy. The servants, often a footman for every 2 or 3 guests, move with silent precision, serving each course, refilling glasses and clearing plates as if by magic. You can almost hear the soft murmur of polite conversation, the gentle clink of cutlery against porcelain, and the occasional soft pop of a wine cork. No one speaks too loudly, no one reaches across the table, and conversation topics are generally kept light and inoffensive, avoiding politics or religion unless amongst very close acquaintances. The dining etiquette was rigorous. Forks and knives were used from the outside, and silver was specialized for each dish, and posture was rigidly upright. Imagine trying to keep track of all those implements while simultaneously making polite small talk and trying to discreetly loosen your corset. It's a subtle ballet of consumption and conversation where every gesture is observed and every faux pas noted, however subtly. You might even spot a guest discreetly signaling to a footman for more water, or a silent nod between the host and butler, indicating the readiness for the next course. This formal dinner party is the epitome of Victorian social life, a testament to the household's ability to entertain on a grand scale and uphold the highest standards of decorum. It symbolizes wealth status and a profound commitment to social ritual. The rich aromas of the food, the sparkle of the crystal, the hushed elegance of the service, these are the indelible marks of a Victorian evening in full swing. You, the silent observer, might feel a deep respect for such an organized display, and perhaps a shiver of relief that modern dinner parties are generally far less formal and certainly don't require 6 different types of forks. As the last vestiges of the multi-course dinner are cleared away, and the port circulates, the formal rigidity of the meal gives way to a more relaxed yet still structured form of entertainment: after-dinner parlor games. This wasn't about competitive athleticism. It was about gentle amusement, intellectual wit, and fostering camaraderie in a socially acceptable manner. Imagine stepping into the drawing room now rearranged slightly perhaps with chairs pulled into a more informal circle around the fireplace or small tables set up for quiet activities. The air still carries the lingering scent of good food and wine mingling with the warmth of the fire. You see guests now more at ease after their sumptuous meal, engaging in various light-hearted activities. The mainstream historical fact here is that parlor games were a hugely popular form of entertainment in Victorian homes, providing amusement and social interaction in an era before widespread radio, television, or recorded music. The quirk, however, lies in the specific types of games favored. You might observe a group engaged in charades with exaggerated gestures and silent hilarity, or perhaps a spirited round of consequences, where a story is collaboratively written, often with amusingly absurd results. Other games might include 20 questions, blind man's bluff, or even more intellectual pursuits like riddles and wordplay. Historians still argue whether the popularity of these structured games was a genuine expression of Victorian humor and wit, or a way to control social interaction, preventing too much spontaneous or unscripted behavior. Regardless, they offered a charming glimpse into Victorian leisure. You can almost hear the soft chuckles, the polite gasps of surprise at a clever charade, or the low murmurs of whispered clues. The atmosphere is one of genteel amusement, fostering a sense of shared enjoyment, without descending into boisterousness. Ladies, perhaps now with their elaborate gowns, slightly less restrictive, participate with graceful enthusiasm, while gentlemen, their ties perhaps loosened ever so slightly, display their wit. You might even spot a small, elegant card table set aside for those who prefer a quiet game of whist or cribbage, a more strategic form of entertainment. These games served multiple purposes. They broke the ice, encouraged interaction between guests who might not know each other well, and provided wholesome entertainment that was deemed morally uplifting. They were a testament to the Victorian value of cultivated leisure and intellectual stimulation, all within the comfortable confines of the home. Think of the gentle competition, the shared laughter, the subtle displays of cleverness. It's a delightful contrast to the rigid formality of the dinner table. These after-dinner parlor games are more than just simple pastimes. They are a vital part of the evening's social fabric, allowing for relaxed interaction and communal enjoyment. They symbolize the Victorian commitment to wholesome entertainment and the nurturing of social bonds within the domestic sphere. The soft murmurs of playful strategy, the ripple of polite laughter, the gentle sounds of cards being shuffled. These are the sounds of a Victorian evening unwinding gracefully, a charming bridge between dinner and the next phase of the social gathering. You, the silent observer, might feel a wistful longing for such simple, screen-free entertainment, and perhaps a sudden urge to suggest a round of charades at your next gathering. As the laughter from parlor games gently subsides, a new melody often fills the drawing room, transforming the space into a stage for the evening's artistic expression, the musical soiree and performances. This wasn't merely background music. It was a central component of Victorian entertainment, showcasing talent, providing cultural enrichment, and offering a genteel form of communal enjoyment. Imagine the drawing room perhaps now with chairs arranged more attentively towards a grand piano or a harp shimmering in the gaslight. The air is hushed with anticipation, then filled with the rich tones of instruments or the clear melodic strains of a human voice. You see members of the family, particularly the ladies and sometimes guests, stepping forward to offer their musical talents. The mainstream historical fact here is that musical accomplishment, especially piano playing and singing, was considered an essential part of a Victorian lady's education and a primary form of domestic entertainment, as public concerts were less accessible and recordings non-existent. The quirk, however, lies in the expected, almost obligatory nature of these performances. You might observe a young lady, perhaps a bit nervous, sitting at the piano, her fingers gracefully navigating a Chopin nocturne or a popular parlor song. Another might offer a soaring rendition of a ballad, her voice filling the room. Historians still argue whether the pressure to perform these musical feats fostered genuine artistic passion or led to widespread anxiety and a performative rather than heartfelt engagement with music. Regardless, the effort was considerable. You can almost hear the gentle thud of piano keys, the soft clink of a pedal, or the clear resonant vibrato of a trained voice. Sometimes a gentleman might join in, perhaps with a cello or a flute, or offering a baritone rendition of a patriotic song. These were intimate concerts tailored for the appreciation of the assembled company. The audience would listen attentively, offering polite applause and murmurs of appreciation after each piece. You might even spot sheet music artfully arranged on a stand, hinting at the hours of practice that went into each flawless performance. Beyond formal pieces, there might be lighter, more impromptu sing-alongs or folk songs fostering a sense of warmth and camaraderie. It's a delightful contrast to the silent, solitary reading of the afternoon. This communal appreciation of music brought people together, creating a shared experience of beauty and culture. Think of the sheer talent often present in these homes, cultivated through years of lessons and dedicated practice. It's a reminder of a time when entertainment was self-generated, created within the very walls of the home. These musical soirees and performances were more than just entertainment. They were a vital expression of Victorian culture, social refinement, and the cultivation of artistic accomplishment. They symbolized a dedication to the arts, the importance of communal enjoyment, and the ability of a household to create its own vibrant world of beauty. The melodic strains of a piano, the clear tones of a singer, the gentle ripple of applause. These are the sounds of a Victorian evening reaching its harmonious peak. You, the silent observer, might feel a wistful longing for such a talent-filled evening, and perhaps a sudden urge to dust off that old instrument you once played. As the final notes of the musical soiree fade into polite applause, the gentlemen of the household and their male guests often make a discreet departure from the drawing room, retreating to their own sanctuary, the rest gentlemen's smoking room. This wasn't merely a place to smoke, it was a masculine domain, a refuge for cigars, brandy, and conversation of a different, often more uninhibited nature. Imagine stepping into a room distinctly different from the refined elegance of the drawing room. The air is thicker here, redolent with the robust scent of tobacco smoke, leather, and spirits. Dark wood paneling, perhaps heavy curtains, and comfortable masculine armchairs create an atmosphere of convivial intimacy. You see gentlemen perhaps with their waistcoats unbuttoned, a discreet amount, holding cigars and snifters of brandy, their conversation now less formal and more boisterous. The mainstream historical fact here is that smoking was largely confined to designated smoking rooms in Victorian homes, especially in the presence of ladies due to concerns about the smell of tobacco clinging to fabrics and ladies' hair. The quirk, however, lies in the unspoken freedom that permeated this male-only space. You might observe animated discussions about politics, business deals, hunting exploits, or even less decorous jokes that would never be uttered in the drawing room. Historians still argue whether the smoking room truly fostered intellectual and social camaraderie among men, or if it served as a subtle reinforcement of patriarchal norms, allowing men to escape from the domestic sphere and express themselves more freely than in mixed company. Regardless, it was a vital part of the evening. You can almost hear the soft puff-puff of cigars, the gentle clink of ice in glasses, and the deeper timbre of male voices, perhaps punctuated by hearty laughter. The atmosphere is one of relaxed camaraderie, a stark contrast to the polite formality maintained in the ladies' presence. The butler or a footman might make occasional, discreet appearances to replenish drinks or clear ashtrays, but their presence is minimal, respecting the privacy of the gentleman. You might even spot a rack of polished pipes or a humidor filled with choice cigars, testament to the refined tastes enjoyed within this inner sanctum. This retreat to the smoking room allowed for a different kind of social bonding, one where the constraints of polite society were temporarily relaxed. It was a space for genuine opinion, robust debate, and shared masculine pursuits. Think of the intellectual sparring, the exchange of confidences, the forging of connections that might have significant repercussions in the world of business or politics. It's a world within a world, a haven of male conviviality after the mixed gender formalities. These hours in the gentleman's smoking room are more than just a place to light up. They are a vital expression of Victorian male social life, allowing for a different kind of freedom and connection. They symbolize the era's gendered spaces, the pursuit of masculine leisure, and the importance of male bonding away from the female gaze. The rich scent of tobacco, the clinking of glasses, the rumble of laughter. These are the robust sounds of a Victorian evening, finding its final most intimate and perhaps most honest chapter. You, the silent observer, might feel a certain allure to this exclusive world, and perhaps a shiver of nostalgia for a time when conversation was king, even if it meant a very smoky atmosphere. As the gentlemen linger in the smoky camaraderie of their private retreat, the ladies, and sometimes those gentlemen who do not partake in tobacco, gather for a lighter final culinary interlude, tea and light supper. This wasn't a formal meal, but a comforting conclusion to the evening, providing warmth, gentle sustenance, and a final opportunity for informal conversation before bedtime. Imagine stepping back into the drawing room perhaps after a brief airing, now quieter and more intimately lit. The air is now free of smoke, replaced by the comforting aroma of freshly brewed tea and perhaps a hint of something sweet from the kitchen. You see a delicate tea service set out on a low table laden with porcelain teacups, a silver teapot, and platters of small, elegant refreshments. The mainstream historical fact here is that afternoon tea evolved throughout the Victorian era, and by evening a lighter supper, or high tea depending on class, could be served, often informal and consisting of simpler fare. The quirk, however, lies in the emphasis on light and digestible fare before retiring. You might observe a selection of dainty sandwiches, perhaps small cakes or biscuits, and a bowl of fresh fruit. No heavy roasts or rich sauces here. The focus is on ease of digestion and comforting flavors. Historians still argue whether the proliferation of distinct mealtimes in Victorian society, breakfast, lunch, and afternoon, tea, dinner, supper, was purely a result of changing social habits or also influenced by emerging dietary theories and the availability of diverse food items. Regardless, it ensured constant refreshment. You can almost hear the gentle clink of spoons against teacups, the soft murmur of polite conversation, now perhaps more relaxed and intimate than earlier in the evening. Ladies might discuss the events of the dinner party, exchange lighter gossip, or share plans for the following day. It's a moment of gentle winding down, a transition from the formal social obligations to the quiet of personal space. Servants would remain discreetly in attendance, ensuring tea is replenished and plates are cleared with silent efficiency. You might even spot a cozy shawl draped over a chair, inviting further relaxation. This final gathering is about comfort and quiet companionship. It offers a last opportunity for convivial interaction, a chance to share a final moment of warmth before the household begins its slow descent into slumber. Think of the soothing ritual of holding a warm teacup, the subtle flavors of the light supper, and the feeling of contentment that settles over the room. It's a peaceful contrast to the earlier grandeur of dinner and the robust conversations of the smoking room. These moments of tea and light supper are more than just a final snack. They are a vital conclusion to the social evening, a gentle signal of the day drawing to a close. They symbolize the Victorian appreciation for comfort and refined simplicity, and the importance of easing into repose. The gentle steam rising from the teacups, the soft rustle of dresses, the quiet, contented sighs. These are the sounds and sights of a Victorian evening, softly fading, preparing the household for a night of rest. You, the silent observer, might feel a deep appreciation for this final moment of warmth and connection, a perfect gentle end to a long, structured day. As the light supper concludes and the last guests begin their polite departures, the visible activity of the family diminishes, but the hidden engine of the household continues to hum. Your attention now shifts downstairs to the West servants' evening tasks. The critical twilight duties that ensure the seamless operation of the household for the following day. Imagine descending into the quieter yet still industrious regions of the house, the kitchen, the scullery, the various service passages. The air might be cooler here now, the intense heat from the day's cooking starting to dissipate, replaced by the scent of cooling embers and damp cloths. You see the domestic staff, their faces perhaps smudged with the day's honest toil, moving with practiced efficiency through a new set of chores. The mainstream historical fact here is that the working day for Victorian servants was exceptionally long, often stretching from early morning until late at night, encompassing a wide array of demanding physical tasks, crucial for maintaining the household. The quirk, however, lies in the sheer volume of preparation required for the next day before the current one truly ends. You might observe the scullery maid meticulously washing and drying every single dish pot and pan from the elaborate dinner party, polishing them until they gleam under the dim gas light, ready for immediate use in the morning. Another might be laying out the fires for the morning, placing kindling and coal precisely so they can be easily lit with the first flicker of dawn. Historians still argue whether the demanding nature of domestic service fostered strong bonds among the staff through shared hardship or led to resentment and competition for the limited comforts available. Regardless, their work was relentless. You can almost hear the soft clink-clatter of dishes being stacked, the gentle swish of a polishing cloth, or the distant thump as a coal scuttle is refilled. The kitchen would be thoroughly cleaned, surfaces wiped down, food items stored away safely. Linens from the dining table would be gathered for washing. Uniforms for the next day might be pressed and laid out. It's a silent, methodical ballet of tidying, organizing, and preparing, ensuring that the morning's routines can begin without a single hitch. You might even spot a housemaid carefully tending to the lamps, refilling them with oil, and trimming the wicks, ensuring they are ready to banish the night's darkness at a moment's notice. These tasks, largely unseen and unappreciated by the family, are the invisible scaffolding upon which the entire structure of Victorian comfort was built. They represent the tireless dedication and physical labor that underpin the elegant facade presented upstairs. Think of the sheer exhaustion, yet the unwavering commitment to duty often performed with little complaint. It's a testament to the discipline and resilience of the Victorian working class. These servants' evening tasks are more than just chores. They are a vital continuation of the household's perpetual motion, a silent handover from one day to the next. They symbolize the relentless cycle of labor, the strict hierarchy, and the unwavering commitment to maintaining the illusion of effortless comfort for the family above. The soft sounds of cleaning, the methodical movements of preparation, the quiet efficiency. These are the authentic sounds of a Victorian night, settling the house into a profound, hard-earned peace, ready to greet the dawn and begin the cycle anew. As the sounds of the servants' evening tasks begin to subside into a quieter hum, the family, having concluded their social engagements, turns its attention inward for a moment of collective reflection. Your focus now shifts to a deeply ingrained ritual that united the household before retiring: family prayers and reflection. This wasn't merely a perfunctory act. It was a sincere expression of Victorian piety, moral grounding, and a moment of shared spiritual calm. Imagine stepping into a quieter, perhaps slightly dim drawing room, or a dedicated morning room, where the lingering warmth of a dying fire casts a soft glow. The air is still and reverent, permeated by a sense of peace. You see the entire family, the gentleman, the lady, any children old enough to attend, and often even the senior domestic staff, like the governess and the butler, gathered together. The mainstream historical fact here is that daily family prayers were a common and highly valued practice in Victorian Protestant households, serving as a cornerstone of moral instruction, spiritual devotion, and family unity. The quirk, however, lies in the specific format and the serious demeanor observed. You might observe the patriarch perhaps seated or standing at a small lectern or a specially designated prayer chair, reading aloud from the Bible, often a passage chosen for its moral instruction or comforting message. This would be followed by a series of prayers, perhaps for the household, for the nation, for those less fortunate, and for divine guidance. Historians still argue whether the widespread adherence to family prayers was a genuine expression of deep personal faith or a strong societal expectation, a public display of piety that reinforced one's respectability. Regardless, the atmosphere was one of solemnity. You can almost hear the low, resonant voice of the gentleman reading from the heavy Bible, the soft rustle of pages, and the gentle cadence of the prayers. The family members would sit or kneel respectfully, their heads bowed, their eyes closed in silent contemplation. It's a moment of collective pause, a chance to reflect on the day's events, to seek forgiveness for shortcomings, and to express gratitude for blessings. You might even hear a child's quiet sigh or the soft cough of a servant, but mostly it is a profound stillness, punctuated only by the words of prayer. This ritual served not only a spiritual purpose, but also a social one, reinforcing family bonds and the hierarchy within the household. It was a moment where master and servant, though separated by class, knelt together before a higher power, acknowledging a shared humanity. Think of the quiet unity, the shared sense of purpose in this nightly devotion. It's a peaceful contrast to the earlier social bustle and the day's practical demands. These family prayers and moments of reflection are more than just a religious observance. They are a vital conclusion to the day, ensuring spiritual nourishment and moral grounding before the household retreats for the night. They symbolize the Victorian commitment to piety, the importance of moral values, and the desire for peace and order within the home. The gentle murmur of prayer, the hushed reverence, the quiet introspection. These are the authentic sounds of a Victorian night finding its spiritual repose, preparing the household for the tranquil embrace of sleep, imbued with a sense of divine watchfulness. As the hushed reverence of family prayers concludes, the household shifts its focus to the youngest members, guiding them gently from the day's structured activities into the realm of dreams. Your attention now turns to the calming ritual of bedtime stories and children's routines, a cherished part of Victorian domestic life designed to soothe young minds and prepare them for slumber. Imagine stepping into a cozy nursery or a child's bedroom, now softly lit by a single gas light or the warm glow of a shaded lamp. The air is peaceful, perhaps carrying the faint scent of lavender or the sweet aroma of warmed milk. You see children perhaps in their nightgowns tucked snugly into their beds, their faces expectant. The mainstream historical fact here is that bedtime routines for children in Victorian times were highly structured, often involving prayers, songs, and storytelling, emphasizing moral lessons and gentle discipline before sleep. The quirk, however, lies in the specific types of stories and the emphasis on gentle guidance. You might observe a kind nursemaid or the governess seated by the bedside, her voice soft and melodic, reading from a beautifully illustrated storybook. These wouldn't be tales of dragons and epic battles, but often stories with clear moral messages, whimsical adventures featuring talking animals, or gentle narratives of brave children. Historians still argue whether the didactic nature of Victorian children's literature fostered strong moral character or suppressed natural childhood imagination and spontaneity. Regardless, the intent was to instill virtue alongside entertainment. You can almost hear the soft rustle of pages, the gentle cadence of the reader's voice, and the quiet sighs of the children as they follow the narrative. Before the story, there might be a quick final round of ablutions, a wash of faces and hands, a brush of teeth with a powder, and perhaps a final trip to the chamber pot. Then comes the cozy tucking in blankets, smooth pillows fluffed, ensuring maximum comfort. You might even spot a favorite stuffed animal or doll clutched tightly in a child's arm, a silent companion on their journey to dreamland. This routine was designed to create a sense of security and tranquility after a day filled with lessons and structured play. It offered a moment of focused, affectionate attention from an adult, a gentle transition from wakefulness to sleep. Think of the comfort derived from the familiar voice, the warmth of the blankets, and the imaginative escape offered by the stories. It's a tender scene, a stark contrast to some of the era's harsher realities. These bedtime stories and children's routines are more than just a way to end the day. They are a vital part of nurturing young minds and preparing them for a restful night. They symbolize the Victorian commitment to moral education, the importance of domestic comfort, and the tender care bestowed upon the next generation. The soft whispers of a tale, the gentle rustle of bedding, the quiet breaths of sleeping children. These are the authentic sounds of a Victorian night, finding its quietest, most innocent repose, ensuring sweet dreams for the smallest members of the household. As the children drift into slumber and the echoes of bedtime stories fade, the quiet industriousness of the household continues for a brief period, focused on ensuring the utmost comfort for the sleeping family. Your attention now shifts to the final meticulous duties of the staff in preparing the bedrooms. Ensuring every detail contributes to a restful and undisturbed night. Imagine stepping into a master bedroom or one of the guest chambers, now hushed and still. The air is cool and fresh, perhaps from a window briefly opened to air the room, or subtly warmed by the dwindling heat of a fireplace. You see a chambermaid moving with practiced quietness, making final adjustments. The mainstream historical fact here is that bedrooms in affluent Victorian homes were often attended to by dedicated staff who ensured fires were stoked, beds were turned down, and various conveniences were prepared for the occupants' comfort throughout the night. The quirk, however, lies in the specific, almost luxurious details of these preparations. You might observe the maid turning down the heavy bedclothes, folding them back neatly to invite slumber. She might place a hot water bottle if it's a chilly night, discreetly under the covers to warm the bed, a simple yet profound comfort in an era without central heating. Historians still argue whether the elaborate turn-down service was purely about comfort or a subtle display of wealth, indicating that the household had enough staff to provide such meticulous attention even in the late hours. Regardless, it was a cherished amenity. You can almost hear the soft rustle of linens, the gentle thump of a pillow being fluffed, or the quiet click as a gas light is dimmed to a suitable level for sleep. A fresh pitcher of water in a glass might be placed on a bedside table, along with a small, elegant chamber pot discreetly tucked away beneath the washstand. Curtains would be drawn tightly to keep out any stray light or drafts. Every effort is made to create an environment conducive to deep, undisturbed rest. You might even spot a favorite book or a pair of spectacles carefully placed on a nightstand, ready for a last moment of reading before eyes close. These meticulous preparations were designed to ensure that the family awoke refreshed and ready for the demands of the next day. They symbolize the unwavering commitment of the domestic staff to the comfort and well-being of their employers, even in the quietest hours. Think of the foresight required to anticipate every need to ensure warmth, quiet, and convenience in an era without modern climate control. It's a testament to the comprehensive nature of Victorian domestic service. These final bedroom preparations are more than just tasks. They are a vital act of care, ensuring the ultimate comfort and security for the family as they enter the realm of sleep. They symbolize the meticulous attention to detail, the unspoken service, and the quiet dedication that define the Victorian household. The soft murmurs of quiet activity, the gentle sounds of adjustments, the deepening stillness. These are the authentic sounds of a Victorian night, finding its deepest, most prepared repose, cradling the household in comfort until the morning sun awakens it anew. As the family settles into the prepared comfort of their bedrooms and the last chambermaid makes her quiet, exit, the mantle of responsibility for the sleeping household falls to one final figure. Your attention now shifts to the quiet, methodical duties of the final rounds in security, undertaken by the butler, ensuring every lock, every lamp, and every corner of the house is secure for the long night ahead. Imagine the grand halls and passages now dimly lit by strategically placed gaslights, their glow barely piercing the deepening shadows. The air is still permeated by the scent of cool stone and the quiet echoes of a day now past. You see the butler, his silhouette moving with an almost ghost-like silence, carrying a heavy bunch of keys and perhaps a small lantern. The mainstream historical fact here is that securing a large Victorian house was a complex task, often left to the head male servant, involving numerous locks, bolts, and the extinguishing of lights to prevent fire hazards, ensuring the family's safety through the night. The quirk, however, lies in the sheer meticulousness of this final patrol. You might observe him testing every window latch in the drawing room, ensuring the heavy curtains are drawn tightly. He checks each door, making sure it's properly bolted, the metallic clack echoing softly in the stillness. Historians still argue whether the perceived level of domestic crime in Victorian cities truly necessitated such elaborate nightly security measures, or if it was also a reflection of a general societal anxiety about order and control. Regardless, the routine was taken seriously. You can almost hear the soft jingle of keys, the faint creak of a floorboard under his careful tread, and the soft click as a gas light is turned down, plunging a room into near darkness. He would make his way through all the ground floor rooms, checking the dining room, the study, the parlors, ensuring no embers are left unattended in fireplaces and no valuables are left unsecured. His rounds might extend to the cellars, checking the wine stores, and perhaps a final look at the scullery to ensure all fires are damped down. It's a silent, solitary vigil, a final act of guardianship for the sleeping household. This final inspection is a testament to the butler's ultimate responsibility for the safety and integrity of the home. It symbolizes the last layer of order being imposed before the house truly surrenders to the night. Think of the quiet dedication, the unerring attention to detail, ensuring that the precious contents and, more importantly, the cherished occupants are protected until dawn. It's a profound sense of duty carried out with calm authority in the deep stillness of the night. These final rounds and security checks are more than just a task. They are the ultimate act of quiet service, ensuring the peaceful slumber and protection of the Victorian household. They symbolize vigilance, responsibility, and the unspoken trust placed in the most senior member of the domestic staff. The soft sound of footsteps, the faint clink of keys, the deepening silence. These are the authentic sounds of a Victorian night being carefully, almost lovingly locked down, holding watch over the dreams within. As the butler's methodical rounds finally conclude and the last gas lights are dimmed, the imposing Victorian house settles into a profound stillness. For the gentleman or lady of the house who perhaps did not immediately succumb to sleep after the day's long routines, there might be a final cherished opportunity for late-night reading and solitude. This wasn't a social activity. It was a private, personal moment, a quiet retreat into one's own thoughts or the world of books before the ultimate embrace of slumber. Imagine a large, comfortable bedroom, now bathed in the soft, intimate glow of a single bedside lamp, perhaps a gas light turned down low, or the gentle flicker of a candle. The air is warm and still carrying the faint scent of beeswax and old paper. You see either the gentleman or the lady perhaps propped up against plump pillows, a book open in their hands. The mainstream historical fact here is that reading was a popular solitary pastime in the Victorian era, even late into the night, facilitated by improving artificial lighting and the increasing availability of printed materials offering escape and intellectual stimulation. The quirk, however, lies in the sheer variety of material one might choose to read in these quiet hours. You might observe the lady absorbed in a serialized novel, eager to discover the fate of her favorite characters, or perhaps a book of poetry, its verses whispering in the stillness. The gentleman might be delving into a weighty tome on philosophy, a historical account, or even a volume of scientific discovery. Historians still argue whether this late-night reading was primarily for intellectual improvement, pure escapism, or a way to wind down and process the day's events in solitude. Regardless, it was a precious quiet time. You can almost hear the soft rustle of pages being turned, the quiet breaths of concentration, and perhaps the distant faint tick of a mantel clock marking the passage of time. This is a moment of complete autonomy, a brief respite from social expectations and domestic duties. It's a chance for the mind to wander freely, to engage with ideas, or to simply be transported to another world through the power of narrative. You might even spot a small glass of water or a final cup of cooling tea on the bedside table, remnants of the day's last small comforts. This private reading performed in the quiet sanctity of the bedroom is a testament to the Victorian appreciation for individual intellectual pursuits and the quiet moments of self-possession. It highlights a culture that valued contemplation and the immersive power of the written word even as the world outside slept. Think of the peace in this profound stillness, the complete absorption in a story or an idea, a final calming ritual before unconsciousness takes hold. These moments of late-night reading and solitude are more than just a way to pass the time. They are a vital act of self-care, a final embrace of personal freedom and intellectual curiosity before sleep. They symbolize reflection, quiet contemplation, and the enduring human need for stories and knowledge. The soft rustle of pages, the gentle breathing of a focused mind, the deepening silence of the night. These are the authentic sounds of a Victorian household, finally truly resting, preparing for the dreams that await. As the last pages turn, the bedside lamp extinguished, and the lingering thoughts of the day begin to intertwine with nascent images, you now enter the realm of dreaming of tomorrow's routine. This isn't a physical activity, but a mental journey, a subconscious rehearsal of the intricate rhythms that will soon reawaken the Victorian household, a silent acknowledgement of the cyclical nature of life. Imagine the deep quiet of the bedroom now cloaked in complete darkness, save for perhaps the faintest sliver of moonlight through the drawn curtains. The air is still permeated by the comfortable warmth of sleep. You sense the gentle ebb and flow of breathing, the profound stillness that follows a day of meticulous order. You are witnessing the very essence of Victorian life, not in action, but in the quiet anticipation of its inevitable return. The mainstream historical fact here is that Victorian life, particularly for the middle and upper classes, was characterized by highly structured daily routines, a predictable rhythm dictated by social expectations, domestic duties, and the demands of work. The quirk, however, lies in how deeply ingrained these routines became, extending even into the subconscious. You might sense, as if peering into the sleeping mind, a gentle mental unfurling of the upcoming day's schedule, the first stirring of the servants, the clang of the hot water jug, the aroma of breakfast, the rustle of morning papers, the quiet lessons, the carriage wheels on the street. Historians still argue whether the strict adherence to routine in Victorian society fostered a sense of security and purpose, or led to a stifling of individuality and spontaneity. Regardless, it permeated every aspect of existence, even dreams. You can almost feel the gentle shift of a body under the covers, a soft sigh as the mind, though asleep, perhaps processes the sequence of upcoming events. There are no frantic dreams of missed appointments or forgotten tasks. Instead, a comforting, almost predictable unfolding. The dreamscape might feature the familiar faces of servants performing their duties, the children engaged in their lessons, the lady arranging her calling cards, or the gentleman poring over his ledgers. It's a silent internal affirmation of order and purpose. This subconscious rehearsal highlights the profound sense of regularity and predictability that defined Victorian existence. The routines were not merely external demands. They became internalized part of the very fabric of identity. Think of the peace that comes with such predictability, the comfort of knowing what tomorrow will bring, a quiet contrast to the uncertainties of the wider world. It's a testament to a society that found profound security and structure. These dreams of tomorrow's routine are more than just unconscious thoughts. They are a vital acknowledgement of the continuous, predictable flow of Victorian domestic life. They symbolize order, security, and the deeply ingrained nature of routine. The soft sounds of contented sleep, the gentle rhythm of breathing, the profound quiet of the house. These are the authentic sounds of a Victorian night, finding its deepest, most settled repose already in its very stillness, preparing for the inevitable, comforting dawn. As the last vestiges of dreams gently dissipate and the mind drifts into its deepest, most peaceful state, the entire Victorian household settles into its ultimate quietude. The silent house sleeps. This is the profound, utter stillness that descends just before the first whisper of dawn, a moment of complete rest for every soul and every stone within its walls. Imagine the grand house now a silent, imposing silhouette against the moonlit sky or the deepening pre-dawn gloom. The gas lamps in the street are long since out, the distant sounds of the city muted by the late hour. The air inside is cool and still carrying only the faintest lingering scent of beeswax, old books, and perhaps a memory of coal smoke. Every floorboard is quiet, every door uncreaking, every window dark. You sense the rhythmic, almost imperceptible breathing of the sleepers within the family in their elegant beds, the servants in their more modest quarters below stairs. The mainstream historical fact here is that large Victorian houses, despite their inherent creaks and groans, would achieve a profound stillness in the deep hours of the night, a quietude rarely experienced in our modern, constantly illuminated and noisy world. The quirk, however, lies in how this deep silence itself becomes a testament to the order and meticulousness of the household. Every task, every precaution, every routine has culminated in this absolute peace. Historians still argue whether the Victorians genuinely valued this deep, undisturbed sleep for its restorative properties, or if it was simply a byproduct of a world without constant, artificial light and sound. Regardless, it was a profound state. You can almost feel the house breathing around you, a massive, quiet entity, holding its occupants in safe slumber. There are no sudden noises, no unexpected interruptions. The fires banked hours ago are now just glowing embers, radiating a faint, comforting warmth. The elaborate clocks throughout the house tick with a slow, deliberate rhythm, their sounds absorbed by the heavy furnishings and thick walls. It's a complete absence of the day's bustling activity, a perfect counterpoint to the structured routines that will soon begin anew. You might even sense the faint hum of the distant world outside, a reminder of the quiet natural rhythms of the earth itself, unbroken by human invention. This profound stillness is the ultimate goal of the Victorian routine, the culmination of all the planning, the labor, and the social choreography. It symbolizes peace, security, and the restorative power of undisturbed rest. Think of the intricate web of activity that had to cease, the myriad of tasks that had to be completed for this level of silence to descend. It is a fragile peace, however, held only until the first stirrings of the cook downstairs, until the first rays of sun begin to pierce the eastern sky, signaling the start of another perfectly orchestrated day. The silent house sleeps a testament to the routines, the discipline and the quiet comfort of a bygone era. The deep, contented breaths of the sleeping, the gentle tick of time, the profound stillness of the night. These are the authentic sounds of a Victorian household at its deepest rest, fully replenished, and ready to embrace the dawn to begin its remarkable, predictable dance all over again. The night has fully embraced the grand Victorian house, drawing its heavy curtains of darkness around us. The meticulous routines, the bustling servants, the elegant family, the very air of structure and purpose all have faded into the profound stillness of sleep. You feel yourself enveloped in that same comforting quiet, the gentle hum of the world outside softening to a distant whisper. The sense of polished wood and old books, the faint echoes of polite laughter, and softly played piano keys now mingle in a peaceful, drowsy haze. Let your thoughts drift unburdened by schedules or expectations. The Victorian world has tucked itself in, and so can you. Surrender to the quiet, let your own breath deepen, and allow the gentle peace of this bygone era to lull you into your own sweet dreams. Sweet dreams.